And we do a bunch of different types of work. We do a good amount of work where we are the supervisor and the sole vendor and the sole creative solution, from everything from character design to final delivery. And then we also work on a sequence level with the visual effects supervisors. Some of them have worked at Zoic before, and a lot there's a lot of community there. We, at this point, we know most everybody.
Yeah.
And they come to us because we have a working relationship with most supervisors, and we do sequence work on some shows that are multi-vendor shows. So we one of the things that gets asked about Zoic Studios in particular is, what's your specialty? And I think that that's something that we bucked the trend on from the beginning, because especially when we started, there was a feeling that you had to specialize. Like, are you a matte painting shop? Are you a dynamic shop? Are you a character shop? And that you're to focus on one part of the visual effects process and make a reputation around that. And people look at our body of work and they're like, well, there's a vampire and there's a spaceship and then there's a castle. What's the common thread here? The common thread here is that we get asked to do work that has what I call a tonal specificity, like something that the creators need a specific vision that's unique to that show. And that's really exploded during streaming, because every streaming wants visual and tonal differentiation. You need to know, like, when you look at Midnight Mass and you look at Sabrina and you look at other things that we have worked on, like Squid Game, like everything has this very, very specific tonal sweet tooth vibe, and visual effects carries a lot of weight in those types of shows. And you need somebody who can, we've always been about building boutique teams, and like I said, we talked about commercials a little bit. That was the commercial boutique was the hot term at the time for visual effects. And there's a lot to be learned from that. There's a creative continuity, a creative nexus of having a core team, and we've always tried to marry that with technology and smart scheduling and utilizing the power of the art and the technology that we have, while keeping that nexus of core team episode after episode, season after season, so that we can deliver these like really specific images to our clients. And it's been a fun ride, because we get to do a lot of stuff. Like we're not the type of visual effects shop that just does like, oh, we're just going to do a bunch of matte paintings, that's right. What we do. Our pipeline's matte paintings. Like we do literally everything, from we do our own previs a lot of times, which we'll talk about that, I think. And like I said, character design, visual effects design, all the way down, helping out, being very involved in the editorial process. It's just been a great experience. And so it's always been from the very beginning of working in broadcast, I got that taste of that immediacy that you get in working broadcast visual effects at a time for, I'd say, good 12 years where broadcast visual effects wasn't getting a lot of respect from the rest of the visual effect. This is kind of like the redheaded child of the visual effects industry for a while there. And I think that that started to turn around, especially with streaming.
Yeah.
Probably about 8 years ago, about the time I was coming to Vancouver, people were like, whoa, like the quality here is like really exceptional, and the storytelling is like amazing. Storytelling potential of using visual effects for broadcast. And now all the broadcast shows, all the streaming shows have huge visual effects footprints and budgets, and the industry is just on fire. Feels to me, I don't know, that it's mostly streaming and broadcast at this point. And I think that that's going to just continue, because people love it. People love to be in their house, and the material is great.
Mm-hmm.
The material is amazing. Yeah, it's really engaging.
No, I think it's made such a massive shift, because you're right. Like, you're referencing Buffy and so many other shows that back then, if you're doing TV, then you really have to work within some very tight limitations, which doesn't give you much freedom. But that's the exciting thing now, is some of the episodics you're dealing with are $1 million, $2 million for some very special case scenarios, and that was unheard of. So yeah. I love the fact that things have gone that direction, because now you can tell long tail stories that if you were to condense it down to a film, you would lose so much. But on top of that, you actually have the budget to be able to do things right, rather than like, hey, sorry, it was TV, like this is the best we could do.
And it's interesting, Allan, because like after working a career in broadcast, and you know, I've worked on the film, you know, here and there, and I've participated in that, and definitely seen it throughout the industry, even though it hasn't been my main focus. What streaming is doing is way closer to traditional broadcast than it is to feature film. Like if there's a spectrum of budget and schedule, which are the two main differentiators, you know, historically between broadcast visual effects and feature film visual effects, like, you know, with features having long time, long budget, and TV having the opposite, short time, short budget. Like, I'm feeling that, you know, like that you know, streaming, you know, with a few exceptions of these like really like marquee shows that are like, you know 6-7 years in the making, but even so, the amount of material, it's like hours and hours and hours of material. Like a season of a 1-hour drama that has, you know, 12-10 episodes, like that's like 3 feature films. That's like 3 Dunes. like in the amount of time that it took to make half a Dune. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a way, you know, it's
that's
way
the challenge, yeah.
And I think that, you know, one of the things that Zoic has paid forward is a creatively focused, versatile, nimble pipeline that allows us to deliver quickly and iterate quickly. And real time has been a huge part of that. And that's where our real time effort is really focused, because from what I see from, you know, other companies, just from my observation and from other, and that have come to Zoic, is that their challenge right now, moving the feature pipeline to be that nimble, to be that interactive, to be that iterative in the time frame, and are really highly invested, you know, as we've been invested, you know, for 2 decades of rapid turnaround, highly iterative, flexible pipeline. They've been invested in high quality, high output, long term, and very linear task stepping. You know, very, very linear, like, you got to prove this camera before I can light. You know, and if you step back, that's, you know, that's either a schedule conversation or an overage conversation or both. And when you get into more complex things like character animation and such, those steps, like, well, you got to approve all the animation on an unfurred character. And once the fur goes in, if you have a single note, you can't go back. And we were never been able to do that. We've never had the luxury of doing that. We've had to be simultaneously firing on all cylinders to make our schedules and be able to do crazy things. Like at the beginning of it, you know, talk to people at the VES and other filmmakers, and they'd be like, what? That's not the way, that's the wrong way to do visual effects. You need to like get approval, like, but that's, you know, back to the practical part in my experience in film school, that's not the way that filmmaking really works. And it creates a separation between visual effects and filmmaking, where it's like a different process that people hate.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you
make it a factory.
You rarely hear creators say, you know what I really love doing? Working with visual effects and visual effects vendors. I want to do it as much as I possibly can. What you hear is, wait, we're going to try and get as much practice. Like, we're only going to do this when we have to. And we've always been looking to change that. And I think real time has the potential to really shift that paradigm and bring the spirit, the collaboration, the language of practical filmmaking back into the visual effects process. We've always been looking to change that. And I think real time has the potential to really shift that paradigm and bring the spirit, the collaboration, the language of practical filmmaking back into the visual effects process. That's the thing that I'm seeing as the biggest, you know, like, there's LED walls. That's awesome. Love LED walls. It's so cool. But everybody's focus on that is like, now I don't have to pay for all these visual effects and like make a gazillion notes on key edges. You know, like, I hate that. I don't want to do that.
It's the other way around, though. It's more now we, you know, either create a separate department for pre-production, which ties into post, or you're basically involving visual effects way earlier on, which now are going to be involved in the whole process.
It moves it into a different space than it has been traditionally.
That's right.